Welcome to Stable Dash for Bluechip edition, recorded at the Bluechip Conference here in Vienna. I'm Chiara Munaretto, and if you're new here, this show is all about stablecoins. Today, we're exploring stablecoins, MiCA, and the future of liquidity in Europe. Today, we're here with Christian Niederlueller, COO at KuCoin EU. Thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure being here. Thank you for the invitation.
So I know that KuCoin has been supporting a wide range of digital assets and stablecoins like USDT, USDC, and even PayPal PYUSD. In EU, with MiCA, of course, we know that the regulation is trying to push exchanges to rethink what kind of stablecoins are good to be listed. So how have stablecoins shaped KuCoin's trading activity in Europe so far? As well, what role do they play in liquidity and user acquisition today?
Yeah, very good question. So in general, stablecoins have been the engine of exchanges worldwide. Without stablecoins, there would have been much less trading activity, much less of value transfer. Settlements have become much easier from an international perspective, money movement perspective. For KuCoin, they've always been like a very important piece to move money around and get corporations in place. For KuCoin EU, we're just getting started. So we are in the final stages of the MiCA application. And only then, more or less, once we have MiCA, very soon, hopefully, then they will also play a very central role for KuCoin EU, because we also need to settle, with other trading parties, with liquidity providers, with KuCoin Global, and therefore, like, this settlement is very difficult, or still too burdensome, too expensive with traditional banks. So stablecoins play a significant role in like the operation from an operational perspective, and then also for sure from a trading or like buying, selling perspective. Yeah.
And when it comes to the difference between retail and more institutional trading, do you see a bigger difference between the two clusters?
Yes, definitely. So in Europe specifically, you see still a lot of the traders or people who want to buy and sell. The retail buyers see less like interest in terms of like going always into the stables, and for sure with institutional buyers, you see a lot of activity back and forth from stables. Though what's interesting, in some European jurisdictions, you have a favorable tax regime. So you're not paying taxes as long as you stay in digital assets, for example, here in Austria, and as well in other countries. As long as you stay in digital assets, and for example, as well in stables, you're not paying automatically withholding tax, capital gains tax.
So in this case, you see a lot of companies just holding or staking.
They're not more or less cashing out than in euros. They go into stables, and therefore also euro stable coins, not just from a global settlement and money movement perspective, can play a role, but also if you don't want to more or less move out into euro, into the fiat currency, and if you don't want to pay immediately taxes on your capital gains, you can also do this, that you are more or less settling and moving into stable coins. Yeah.
And when it comes down to payments, is there any way KuCoin facilitates payments in stable coins? So have you already sort of a card, for example, that facilitates payments, or how are you approaching that angle?
Yeah, KuCoin on a global perspective, there's KuCard, which we will also very likely very soon adopt in Europe after we have clarified a few topics. And there's also something called KuPay, where you can directly pay more or less from and with your KuCoin account. So yes, there's definitely a lot of possibilities with moving money around. I mean, you can also, from your account, just send it out of the KuCoin universe. You can also send it actually to the Web3 wallet of KuCoin. So there are really a lot of possibilities to interact, transfer stable coins, and have them moving around.
Yeah, I think like it's really like a role that everyone will start having it in the future. So really being the enabler of payments, because in the end, stable coins, I believe, compared to crypto more for the purpose of investing, are really meant for payments as well.
What you should not, I think, miss there is that now with the transfer funds regulation, which is in effect, coming into effect.
Who doesn't know the transfer funds regulation? Can you clarify that?
It's something which more or less is reflected in the digital asset ecosystem with the travel rule.
Yeah.
travel rule and a lot of other compliance elements like transaction monitoring with players like Chainalysis or TRM and like travel rule providers like Nota Bene, SumsUp, and so on and so forth. You get a whole like compliance stack, which is the infrastructure backbone actually of money movement on chain. Which means if you respect these providers and have implemented them, you get a very, very holistic and great possibility to move money around faster, cheaper, like even more transparent and compliant than you can get it with the traditional banking system.
Thank you. I would like to switch now to a different topic, more related to the listings of stablecoins, because we have seen like in this second half of 2025, so many new stablecoins have been launched. So what drives really the KuCoin decision-making processes in understanding what kind of stablecoins are you going to list or not list?
Good question. So, I mean, from stablecoins are a little bit different than normal assets. So KuCoin Global definitely is interested actually to have some stablecoins listed where more or less the through this listing or through the possibility to buy and sell this token or this stablecoin on the platform, also other participants are interested to trade and work with and on the platform. And therefore, there's more reason to do it than with other tokens where you get a listing fee and so on and so forth. Though you also need with stablecoins like liquidity in the trading pairs, and that needs to be provided as well. That also doesn't come automatically. So the companies behind the stablecoins itself, they need to provide liquidity. Market makers need to be on board, and so that's very important that you have all the participants on board to actually be able to list those stable coins. One interesting aspect probably is as well, especially here in Europe and especially in the interaction with KuCoin Global, we might also list Euro stable coins where we see a settlement perspective with KuCoin Global, for example, and other liquidity providers. So it could be also the other way around, that we are listing a token listing. That brings me to one point. We are no exchange. We will be no exchange. We will be only a broker. So we need to have other venues listed the token, and then we can bring it to the platform. But we would be a good like player to incentivize other exchanges or liquidity provider to provide actually these pairs somewhere else, and then we source the liquidity from them.
So, and this type of broker role that you just mentioned, would it be a completely separated entity? Would it be something that you develop here in Vienna?
Yeah, so we need for the crypto services we're applying for now with the MiCA application. We applied for a certain set of crypto services. And within this crypto service, we didn't apply to be a full exchange. Why? Because it requires a lot of effort, a lot of capital, a lot of liquidity actually, to then more or less set up in parallel pairs where you need to, in parallel to the global exchange, more or less, in parallel build up liquidity and trading pairs. And that's a lot of effort. OKX is doing it, for example, and some others as well. Let's see how this goes. We think the better approach is probably to do this maybe later, very selectively, and apply for the additional element of the license. And for now, go with a best execution model where we are not just attaching KuCoin Global order book to us, but predominantly as well, like more or less all order books from a global perspective. That also enables us actually to list a lot of tokens, have the global liquidity, and act as a broker, as the direct counterpart actually to the customer.
So in this case, how have you been experiencing the MiCA regulation? What are your thoughts around it? And I know you're close to finalize the process. How it has been?
It has been actually very good, the process. So we have a very like open, very like good communicating and well-educated regulator here in Austria. So that also like speaks for it, because like we have Bybit here now, BitGet is coming, and also a lot of other exchanges are actually looking into, I mean, we have the old OG more or less in place here in Vienna with BitPanda. That also is the reason why the regulator is already so well educated in terms of like digital assets and crypto, because BitPanda is around for more than 10 years now. There has been some exchange of people between the regulator and crypto players, and that actually made it possible that the regulator is very knowledgeable, knows how to deal with digital asset players, and that that actually makes the communication and the whole process also very good, actually. Yeah.
So am I understanding here as well that even though MiCA refers to all European Union countries, the experience may still depend on the expertise that lies within each of the European countries?
Yes, 100%. They all have to treat everyone in the same way, but still the regulators have a different experience, know-how, different teams, probably have a different setup in total, so are maybe less knowledgeable. So yeah, there's definitely a difference. Some regulators might be a bit shy to hand out MiCA license because they have no experience yet. So
Education.
yeah, exactly.
And when it comes down to your own usage of stablecoin, so you mentioned it before on the brokerage role. How do you manage your own treasury within stablecoins, and how much of that it's also related to the operational liquidity itself?
Yeah, there are definitely, I mean, we definitely have to be very prudent in our treasury approach. We also, first of all, I mean, we did segregate funds, and our funds are completely segregated. That's also one of the core elements of MiCA. Same is for all fiat. So from a crypto perspective, same is for all fiat movements. And then stablecoins, it's the same. And it actually enables to have faster netting money movements to liquidity providers and also to more or less to KuCoin Global when we are settling. But we are treating KuCoin Global order book in the same way as we're actually treating other liquidity providers.
Yeah. And when it comes down to the role itself of centralized exchanges, traditional banks, stablecoin focused neobanks, how do you see stablecoin adoption moving forward? So, what are the roles of these different players in fostering stablecoin adoption?
I mean, there has been so the whole space, the stablecoin space, I think exploded in especially in the last 1.5 years.
Stablecoin summer.
Yes, definitely. I mean, you saw the infrastructure, the rails, the people and companies working on stablecoin infrastructure getting a huge amount of funding, a lot of attention. Yeah. You saw a lot of new stablecoins popping up, probably too many. Yeah, there will be definitely also some kind of a stablecoin consolidation, I think, in the near future. So I see it in a very positive way. I think we see huge adoption, and this will become even more with almost how Larry Fink put it now in Saudi a few weeks ago. Yeah, is that he sees like that all assets are being tokenized.
Yes.
And if you're tokenizing more or less all the traditional assets, you also need to tokenize more or less or have the money rails tokenized, yeah, or like in a digital way. And their stable coins are the fuel for the engine, yeah.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a good point that right now we have perhaps even too many stablecoins. What are your thoughts there? How do you think that the industry will evolve itself? Will it be more of a matter that the more we have, the faster we get to the so-called final ones that actually everyone will be using? Or will we get to a scenario where a lot of stablecoins will exist for very, very specific purposes? So there's not really a competition because all of them will work, let's say, in silos for specific purposes.
I think there is competition, definitely. I think there will be stable coins which will act in a certain niche and will be successful there. Yeah. But in general, the big players will definitely accumulate more and more volume. I mean, even if Circle, for example, now was growing probably a little bit faster, they also accumulated still like huge amounts of more or less money, like real money allocated to them, and that this will grow even more. And for sure, there will be Euro stable coins, but it will be very hard actually that they would outgrow more or less US stable coins, for example, yeah, or like even play a significant role, yeah. Still, like most of the settlements, so the trading pairs and settlements and money movements is mostly in US dollar, and that's the dominant. And they also, like with the Genius Act, also the US administration also moved very fast now into this direction. And MiCA also has the e-money tokens in place now and asset reference token.
Can you clarify the difference?
Actually, there's a good distinction. So e-money tokens, they're only allowed to have one base currency actually as the reference, and asset reference token, you have either the reference to assets, all kinds of assets, yeah, or to more than one currency.
Yeah.
And an asset reference token is never allowed to be an e-money token, yeah. So e-money token, only one base currency, asset reference token, either more base currencies or other assets, yeah.
And do you think this adds an extra level of complexity in companies trying to adhere to regulation, or an extra level of clarity in understanding exactly where do they fit?
I think it's a bit mix of both. I think overall, MiCA really gets a lot of clarity and harmonization, which is very good. So I was always a big fan the last 2 years of like having MiCA finally implemented, and I think it's still good that it's here. It brings a lot of clarity, harmonization, but to some extent it's also a bit overshooting. I mean, there's some things in MiCA like the ESG requirements and like a lot of very detailed requirements, which are probably a bit overshooting. But I think the regulator also realized, or the EU also realizes now that it's probably sometimes too much, and they're not going any further for now, I think. Yeah.
One last question. KuCoin, stablecoins, looking into 2026. Anything in particular on the pipeline?
So I'm very KuCoin Global and KuCoin EU, especially speaking of a KuCoin EU, we will definitely look into listing Euro stablecoins, which we then can use as well with KuCoin Global. We will definitely try to foster as well the European ecosystem, and we will still have the other big stablecoins as well on the European platform for simplicity, for international movement of money, and also from a trading perspective, they are essential. So well, a lot of stablecoin topics.
We cannot wait to hear more about KuCoin's next announcements with the MiCA and all the rest that will come for EU with MiCA and stablecoins. So thank you very much for spending time with us. Thank you very much, Christian, for this interview and for sharing your thoughts with us. Making sure you're subscribed to Stable Dash Podcast to learn everything about stablecoins, and we'll hear very soon from you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.